White-tailed deer can be a serious problem in many areas of Oklahoma, especially during the lean winter months. And while there's no plant that is entirely deer-proof, there are plants that deer tend to avoid. Some plants, like this Lavender Lavandula, produce odors that deer don't like and keeps them from eating the plant. Others would be thyme species or thymus. Other plants are just unpalatable, and this could be that they have a bad taste or that their structure or architecture deters feeding, like hens and chicks, sempervivum. Another would be the Opuntia or prickly pear cactus. Deer tend to avoid this one for obvious reasons, both the large spiky spines that we have on here, and also these fine hairs are incredibly irritating. This is a great plant to put in your landscape where deer are a problem, and it's very well adapted to Oklahoma. So if deer are a problem for you, don't let them keep you from having a magnificent garden. There's plenty of plants that you can select. OSU fact sheet 6427 lists herbaceous and woody plants that can be used when deer are a problem. Now, while there's many plants that deer tend to avoid, there are others that they seem to browse very heavily. Tulips, for example, seem to be a springtime favorite. So if deer are a problem for you, you might consider planting daffodils or hyacinths as an alternative. A number of trees and shrubs are also heavily browsed, including many fruits. Apples, plums, and peaches are often browsed, as well as rhododendrons. Selecting plants that deer avoid is certainly a simple way to manage these animals, but it's not always the most practical, especially in our vegetable gardens where many of our most common crops are heavily browsed. The most effective way to keep deer at bay is to use an exclusion fence, and there's two main types that are used. These would be electric fences, which have a series of parallel wires, usually about 3 that carry an electric current, or you could get an 8-foot-high deer exclusion fence. We have one here. This is a deer blocker deer fence by Nick's Light of America, and with deer, many of our decorative fences, they're only about 4 or 5 feet, and deer can easily jump over these. So you really need to reach up to 8 feet and get a large fence to keep the deer out. This is made of a lightweight polyethylene, and it's easy to put up. A lot of fences can be expensive, or people just don't like the look of a fence, and that might prevent them from wanting to use one. Some of these deer blocker fences, though, if you put them at a woodland edge, they really disappear into the brush when you look at them from a distance. So they'll keep the deer out, but they're not going to be too obtrusive in the landscape. Now, if fences are not an option, you can also try a number of repellents. There's 2 main categories of deer repellent. Those would be area repellents, which have a bad odor, and contact repellents, which deter feeding through a bad taste. These are similar to the mechanisms used by plants like the lavender that we looked at to deter deer feeding. Of these, the contact repellents are the most effective, but it's important to realize that a hungry deer is going to eat just about anything. So they are not 100% effective at reducing deer browsing. You might have heard people suggest some household items to reduce deer, and those would be bar soaps or human hair, cat and dog feces, things like that. Now, research has looked into this, and they tend to be fairly ineffective at deterring deer. The best of these would be bar soap and human hair. But by far the best types of repellent are your theorem-based contact repellents, such as chaperone and spot tree F. One last way to manage deer is to create a virtual fence using products such as this. This is a Scarecrow. It's a motion-activated sprinkler. And how it works is it has an infrared sensor, and when an animal comes into the area and trips the sensor, it sends out a 3-second burst of water into the landscape. And this quickly frightens away any intruders, and they tend to not return once they've experienced that. The Scarecrow mounts on a stake in your yard and attaches to a garden hose. It's a very effective way at managing deer as well as raccoons, dogs, cats, and other wildlife. Now, you might want to experiment with several different tactics. Try selecting plants that deter feeding, and also use repellents to protect those that you already have. Fences might work in small gardens or around a vegetable garden, for example. And of course, you always have products like your scarecrow.